Welcome to the channel where hidden treasures come to life and ordinary pocket change turns into extraordinary stories. And today we're diving deep into one of the most shocking and mysterious modern Lincoln cent legends that has collectors, investors, and everyday coin hunters buzzing with excitement because what looks like a simple 1977 D1 cent could, under the right circumstances, be a coin whispered about in the same breath as nine-figure rarities, with stories claiming value soaring toward an unbelievable $90 million due to a perfect storm of errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, and near-mythical possibilities that transform a common copper cent into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And to understand how such a staggering value is even imagined, we have to step back into the late 1970s, when the Denver Mint was striking millions upon millions of Lincoln cents during a period of heavy production, aging equipment, rushed output, and quality control challenges that quietly opened the door for dramatic mint errors to slip through unnoticed, creating the ideal environment for freak accidents that could produce coins with off-metal strikes, dramatic double dies, wrong planchets, extreme misalignments, and transitional characteristics that were never meant to exist, and the 1977 D cent sits right at the intersection of these conditions. Because while the date itself is considered common in normal form, it becomes extraordinarily rare when paired with the right combination of flaws, such as a dramatic double die obverse where Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the inscriptions appear strongly doubled due to a misaligned hubbing process, an error that requires the die to be impressed more than once at slightly different angles, resulting in a bold, unmistakable doubling that can be seen without magnification, and that instantly elevates a coin from pocket change to high-end collectible territory. And when such doubling is extreme and perfectly preserved, it becomes the kind of piece that advanced collectors compete fiercely for, driving prices into the stratosphere. But that's only the beginning, because some of the most explosive value theories surrounding the 1977 D cent involve wrong planchet errors where the coin was struck on a metal blank never intended for a Lincoln cent at all, such as a copper-nickel planchet meant for another denomination or a foreign planchet accidentally fed into the press, creating a cent that weighs differently, sounds different, and looks subtly or dramatically off compared to standard issues. And when such a coin is authenticated and proven to be genuine, especially if the metal composition ties into experimental alloys or undocumented mint testing, its rarity multiplies exponentially, opening the door to valuations that defy conventional price guides, especially if the coin is unique or one of only a handful known to exist. And then there are off-center strikes, which occur when the planchet is not seated properly in the striking chamber, causing part of the design to be missing. And while minor off-center errors are relatively common and modestly priced, an extreme off-center 1977 D cent that still shows the full date and mint mark while missing a large portion of the design can become a showpiece error that commands enormous premiums, particularly if the error is clean, dramatic, and visually stunning. But even that pales in comparison to the fascination surrounding broad strikes, where the collar that normally holds the coin in shape fails, allowing the metal to spread outward during the strike, producing a larger-than-normal coin with distorted lettering and an otherworldly appearance. And when a broad strike is combined with other anomalies such as doubling or die cracks, the result is a compound error that collectors prize above almost all others. And speaking of die cracks, the 1977 D cent is known among specialists for the potential of late-stage die deterioration, where worn and damaged dies create raised lines, cuts, and retained breaks that give the coin a rugged, sculptural look, and in extreme cases a massive cud, which is a raised blob of metal caused by a broken die section, can dramatically alter the coin's design, creating a one-of-a-kind appearance that turns a routine cent into a numismatic oddity worthy of museum-level attention. And when such a cut interacts with key design elements like Lincoln's head or the date, it becomes even more desirable, pushing speculative values into incredible territory. But perhaps the most tantalizing and controversial possibility tied to the $90 million narrative involves transitional or experimental strikes, because the late 1970s were a time when the U.S. Mint was constantly evaluating metal compositions due to rising copper prices. And while the official transition to zinc-based cents didn't occur until the early 1980s, the idea that experimental blanks or test alloys could have been struck earlier has fueled decades of speculation, and if a genuine 1977 D cent were ever authenticated as being struck on an undocumented experimental planchet, especially one tied to internal mint testing that was never meant to leave the facility, its historical significance alone could justify an astronomical valuation, particularly if it were the only known example, and uniqueness is a powerful driver of price in the coin world, because when a collector knows there is only one, or perhaps two or three, competition becomes limitless, and money often follows obsession rather than logic, and that's how theoretical values climb into the tens of millions, and condition plays a massive role as well, because an error coin that survives in pristine, uncirculated, or even proof-like condition multiplies its desirability dramatically. And a 1977 D cent with extreme errors preserved with sharp details, blazing luster, and no signs of circulation becomes the holy grail for error collectors, registry set competitors, and elite investors who see coins not just as collectibles, but as portable, historical assets. And authentication is the final and most critical piece of the puzzle, because for any 1977 D cent to even be whispered about at $90 million, it would need ironclad verification from top grading and attribution services, metallurgical analysis confirming its composition, dye studies linking it to known or unknown mint processes, and a provenance story that traces its discovery and ownership over time, because the stronger the story, the stronger the value, and when a coin has mystery, controversy, and scientific backing all wrapped into one small copper disc, it captures the imagination of the entire numismatic world, driving headlines, speculation, and record-breaking auction results. And this is why collectors are urged to look closely at every 1977 D cent they encounter, checking weight, diameter, alignment, strike quality, doubling, metal color, and sound, because while the vast majority will be ordinary, history has proven again and again that extraordinary coins often hide in plain sight for decades before someone finally recognizes their significance. And whether or not a $90 million 1977 D cent ever officially changes hands, the very possibility keeps the thrill alive, reminding us that even in the modern era of mass production, the minting process is still capable of producing miracles, mistakes, and mysteries that challenge our understanding of value, rarity, and chance. And that's what makes coin collecting so endlessly exciting, because the next legendary discovery could be sitting in a jar, a drawer, or your pocket right now, waiting for someone curious enough to take a closer look. Next, 2006 1 cent USA coin. We are diving into one of the most shocking modern coin stories that has ever captured the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, and everyday people checking their spare change. A story about an ordinary-looking 2006 1 cent coin that under the right circumstances could be worth an unbelievable $75 million. And while that number sounds almost impossible for a modern penny, the truth is that rare errors, minting mistakes, experimental strikes, transitional metals, and one-in-a-lifetime anomalies can turn a simple copper-colored coin into a historic artifact that collectors would fight over. So sit back and stay with me as we explore how a 2006 penny could become one of the most valuable coins ever imagined, starting with the fact that most people overlook modern cents entirely, assuming only old wheat pennies or 19th century coins hold serious value. Yet the modern minting process, with its high-speed machinery and massive production numbers, actually creates unique opportunities for rare errors to slip through unnoticed, especially in years like 2006 when billions of cents were produced across multiple facilities under intense demand, and when even the smallest deviation in planchets, dies, or striking pressure could create something extraordinary. One of the most valuable possibilities tied to a 2006 1 cent revolves around the idea of a wrong planchet strike, where a penny is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin, and if a 2006 cent were struck on a gold planchet, experimental alloy, or an unissued test metal, its value would instantly skyrocket because it would represent a mint error of historic importance, especially if documentation or metallurgical testing confirmed it was an official mint product rather than post-mint tampering. Another powerful factor is the possibility of a transitional error involving metal composition, because while most 2006 cents were struck on copper-plated zinc planchets, the U.S. Mint has a long history of testing alternative metals behind the scenes due to rising production costs, and if even a handful of experimental blanks made of bronze, aluminum, steel, or another alloy were accidentally fed into the presses and struck with 2006 dies, those coins would instantly become legendary. Much like the famous 1943 copper cent or the 1944 steel cent, and collectors know that transitional errors tied to composition changes can command prices far beyond normal expectations, especially when only one or two examples are known, pushing valuations into the tens of millions when museums and elite private collectors compete. Another scenario that fuels the $75 million valuation is a double denomination error, where a 2006 penny design could be struck over an already struck coin such as a dime, nickel, or even a quarter, creating overlapping designs that should never exist together, and if such an error were dramatic, clearly visible, and verified by professional grading services, it would represent an almost impossible minting sequence error that could redefine what modern error collecting looks like, adding to that the potential for extreme die errors, such as a double die obverse or reverse so strong that letters, numbers, and Lincoln's portrait appear dramatically double. Not the minor machine doubling seen on many modern cents, but true hub doubling created during the die manufacturing process. And if a 2006 penny exhibited massive doubling across the entire design, especially combined with another error like an off-metal strike, the value would multiply exponentially because collectors prize coins that show multiple independent errors on a single piece, making them statistical miracles. Another jaw-dropping possibility involves a mule error, where dies intended for two completely different coins are paired together accidentally. And while mule errors are exceptionally rare in the modern era, they are not impossible, and if a 2006 1 cent obverse were somehow paired with a reverse die from another denomination or even a commemorative or foreign issue, the resulting coin would instantly become one of the most talked about modern numismatic discoveries ever, with auction houses eager to showcase it as a once-in-a-century find. And when hype, rarity, and historical significance collide, prices can climb to levels that seem unreal, especially when wealthy collectors see the coin as a status symbol rather than just an investment. Yet another factor that can push a 2006 penny into legendary territory is the condition combined with its error, because if such a coin survived in flawless mint state or proof-like condition with sharp details, blazing surfaces, and no signs of circulation, it would represent not only a rare mistake but a perfectly preserved example of that mistake, which dramatically increases desirability. And when condition rarity meets error rarity, valuation models break down because there are no comparable sales to anchor expectations, opening the door to record-breaking numbers. The idea of a $75 million 2006 cent also connects to provenance and discovery story, because if such a coin were discovered by an ordinary person in circulation, in a bank roll, or even in a mint-sealed bag, the narrative alone would elevate its fame. And collectors pay enormous premiums for coins with compelling stories, especially when the discovery proves that incredible treasures can still be hiding in plain sight, further fueling public fascination and competitive bidding. Another layer of value comes from authentication and controversy, because coins that challenge what experts believe is possible often generate debate within the numismatic community. And when a coin survives intense scrutiny, metallurgical analysis, die study, and historical research, emerging as a confirmed genuine mint error, its reputation becomes unshakable, and that validation transforms skepticism into desire, driving prices higher as collectors rush to own a piece that rewrote the rulebook. It is also important to consider the role of intentional destruction and survival rates, because many rare errors are unknowingly destroyed during quality control, melted, or lost. And if a 2006 penny error survived when thousands or millions of similar mistakes were caught and eliminated, its survival becomes almost miraculous, and rarity, defined by survival rather than production, is one of the strongest drivers of extreme value in coin collecting. The market psychology cannot be ignored either, because when headlines start circulating about a modern penny potentially worth millions, interest explodes, new collectors enter the hobby, and demand increases across the board. But the very best example always rises far above the rest, becoming the ultimate prize that everyone wants but only one person can own. And when billionaires and institutions enter the bidding arena, traditional prize ceilings disappear, pushing valuations into territory once reserved for famous paintings or ancient artifacts. The year 2006 itself adds an interesting twist, because it represents a time when modern minting technology was assumed to be nearly perfect, so any major error from this period feels especially shocking and intriguing, reminding collectors that no system is foolproof, and that even in the digital age, human and mechanical variables can align to create extraordinary anomalies, and this realization gives modern era coins a special place in numismatic history, bridging the gap between classic rarities and contemporary surprises. All of these possibilities together: wrong metal strikes, experimental planchets, massive double dies, mule errors, double denominations, pristine condition, compelling provenance, extreme rarity, and intense collector competition form the foundation for why a 2006 1 cent could theoretically command a price as staggering as $75 million, not because every 2006 penny is valuable, but because the right combination of mistakes transforms a mass-produced coin into a singular object that can never be replicated, and that is what drives true value in the world of rare coins. So the next time you see a simple 2006 penny in your change, remember that while most are worth just 1 cent, history has shown time and time again that extraordinary treasures can emerge from the most ordinary places, and the possibility, however slim, is what keeps collectors searching, examining, and dreaming, because somewhere out there could be a penny that defies expectations, challenges experts, and becomes one of the most valuable modern coins ever known. And that is the thrill that makes coin collecting not just a hobby, but a never-ending hunt for hidden fortune. Next, 2017 P1 cent USA coin. Welcome to an incredible story that proves modern pocket change can still hide jaw-dropping fortunes. Because today we're diving deep into the astonishing mystery of the 2017 P1 cent coin, a humble Lincoln penny that on the surface looks completely ordinary, yet under the right circumstances and with the right rare mistakes can explode in value to a mind-blowing $61 million. And as you listen closely, you'll realize why collectors, error hunters, and everyday people are now rechecking their spare change with fresh excitement, because the 2017 Philadelphia minted 1 cent was produced in massive numbers during a time when speed, automation, and cost-cutting were at their highest, creating the perfect storm for dramatic minting errors to slip through unnoticed. And that is where the magic begins, because errors are not damage, they are mint-born anomalies that occur during the striking, planchet preparation, die creation, or metal composition stages, and when several of these rare events align on a single coin, the result can be something so unique that it becomes essentially priceless to the right buyer. And the 2017 P cent is surrounded by rumors, private collector whispers, and documented discoveries that suggest ultra-rare transitional errors, off-metal strikes, die catastrophes, and experimental alloy mistakes may exist within this issue, especially since 2017 was a period when the U.S. Mint was actively testing alternative metals and compositions behind the scenes to reduce production costs, and when experimental blanks are involved, the potential for a 1-cent coin to be struck on the wrong metal skyrockets, including metals intended for foreign coins, test alloys, or even leftover planchets from previous experimental batches. And if a genuine 2017 penny were struck on a bronze alloy heavier than standard zinc, or on a copper-nickel composition similar to older coins, the weight, sound, and color would immediately stand out to experts, and such a confirmed off-metal strike alone could command millions. But the legend grows even stronger when combined with extreme die errors such as double denomination strikes where a 1-cent design is struck over another coin, or vice versa, creating a freak of minting history that cannot be replicated, and collectors pay astronomical sums for uniqueness, not age. Which is why a 2017 coin can theoretically outvalue classic rarities from the 1800s. And then there are doubled dies, one of the most misunderstood yet powerful drivers of value, because true doubled dies are created during the die manufacturing process, not from wear or damage, and when a doubled die affects major design elements like Lincoln's portrait, the date, the word liberty, or in God we trust with thick separation and clear notching, the value increases exponentially, and if such doubling were extreme, previously unknown, and paired with other anomalies, like rotated dies or misaligned strikes, the resulting coin could become the crown jewel of modern era collecting. And speaking of rotation, imagine flipping a penny and seeing the reverse design rotated far beyond the normal tolerance, perhaps 90 degrees, or even fully inverted. A dramatic rotation error paired with a major doubled die is the kind of combination that sends shockwaves through the numismatic world. Because combination errors are exponentially rarer than single errors, and rarity multiplied by demand equals massive value. And demand for modern-era coins has exploded thanks to social media, online auctions, and viral stories of ordinary people discovering extraordinary coins, pushing prices higher with each new discovery. And then there are broad strikes and partial collar strikes, where the coin spreads beyond its intended diameter due to missing or malfunctioning retaining collars, creating distorted rims and expanded designs. And while many broad strikes exist, a perfectly centered broad strike with additional errors like die cracks, cuds, or retained clips becomes a monster rarity, and cuds themselves tell a dramatic story of die failure, where chunks of the die break away leaving raised blobs of metal on the coin. And massive cuds on modern coins are especially prized because dies today are monitored closely and replaced quickly, meaning fewer opportunities for catastrophic failure. And when a die fails dramatically yet continues striking coins briefly, those coins become instant legends. And retained clips are another area where value can soar, especially if the clip shape is clean, curved, and clearly the result of improper planchet cutting, and when combined with other errors such as off-center strikes where part of the design is missing entirely, the visual appeal and uniqueness skyrocket, and collectors crave visually striking errors that tell a story at a glance. And then there's the possibility of wrong mint marks or phantom mint marks caused by die damage or contamination, especially intriguing on a Philadelphia coin that officially carries no mint mark, because any abnormal marking near the date becomes a subject of intense scrutiny, and if proven to be die-related rather than damage, the value can climb rapidly and surface anomalies such as die polish lines, die gouges, and clash marks where obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between can create ghostly impressions of opposing designs, and dramatic clashes are highly collectible, especially when they remain bold and untouched by circulation, and condition plays a crucial role as well, because a pristine mint state coin with sharp details, original luster, and note postman damage magnifies the impact of every error, and professional grading and authentication are essential to unlocking top value, because once a coin is certified by a major grading service with a clear error attribution, it enters a global marketplace of serious buyers, including wealthy collectors, investors, and museums. And while the $61 million figure may sound unbelievable, it represents the theoretical peak value for a unique, one-of-a-kind discovery that checks every box: rarity, condition, historical significance, and verified authenticity, similar to how other legendary coins shattered expectations at auction. And history proves that the numismatic world rewards the impossible, because once something truly unique is confirmed, price ceilings vanish, and modern coins carry an added layer of intrigue because they challenge the assumption that only old coins matter, and this shift has energized a new generation of collectors who see every roll of pennies as a potential treasure chest, and that excitement fuels demand, stories, speculation, and rising prices. And the 2017 P1 cent sits at the crossroads of high mintage, modern technology, experimental mint practices, and human oversight, creating endless possibilities for errors that remain undiscovered, tucked away in jars, drawers, and forgotten collections around the world. And that is why checking your coins carefully matters, weighing them, inspecting them under magnification, listening to the ring, and comparing them to known standards, because one overlooked detail could change everything. And whether or not a $61 million example has surfaced publicly yet, the potential alone keeps collectors searching, dealers watching, and auction houses ready, because numismatic history is written the moment a truly unique coin is revealed, and until every 2017 penny is accounted for, the story remains open, the hunt continues, and the possibility that an ordinary cent could become a once-in-a-lifetime fortune remains very real. And here on this channel we explore these stories not just to dream, but to educate, inspire, and remind you that hidden value often lies in the places we least expect, sometimes right in the palm of your hand. Next, 1993 D Lincoln Penny. If you're new here, you're in the perfect place, because today we're diving into one of the most surprising modern coin stories ever told. A story that proves you don't need a 100-year-old coin to strike it rich, because the humble 1993 D1 cent coin that many people still overlook or even toss aside could, under the right circumstances, be worth an unbelievable $12 million. And yes, that number sounds shocking, but stay with me, because by the end of this video you'll understand exactly how a seemingly ordinary copper-plated zinc penny from the early 1990s can reach such a jaw-dropping valuation thanks to a rare combination of minting errors, production mistakes, metal anomalies, and extraordinary circumstances that transform it from pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And as we explore this topic, remember that some of the greatest coin discoveries in history were made by regular people who simply paid attention to the small details. So let's begin by setting the stage with what the 1993 D1 cent is supposed to be, because understanding the normal version helps reveal just how powerful a mistake can be. The standard 1993 D penny was struck at the Denver Mint, bears the familiar Lincoln portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and was mass-produced in enormous quantities using zinc planchets coated in a thin layer of copper, meaning most examples are worth face value and show signs of circulation. But hidden among these millions are theoretical and documented error types that, when combined in extreme or unique ways, could elevate a single specimen into the multi-million-dollar category, especially if the coin displays a previously unknown or ultra-rare error that challenges what collectors and experts believe is possible for that year. One of the most important possibilities starts with wrong planchet errors, which are among the most valuable mistakes in modern coinage. If a 1993 D cent were struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another metal entirely, such as a bronze planchet from an earlier era or an experimental alloy that was never meant for circulation, the value would instantly skyrocket, Imagine a 1993 penny struck on a solid copper planchet matching the pre-1982 composition. Or even more extraordinary, on a planchet intended for a foreign coin or a different U.S. denomination. Such errors are already rare on their own, but a perfectly preserved example authenticated by top grading services could command massive attention from elite collectors, especially if it represented a transitional or off-metal error that was never officially documented by the U.S. Mint. Another major factor that could push the value toward $12 million is a dramatic and unique double die error, not just a common double die where letters show minor doubling, but an extreme hub doubling that causes the date, mint mark, and major design elements to appear dramatically doubled or even tripled. If a 1993 penny surface with a bold, unmistakable double die obverse combined with additional errors like misalignment or die rotation, it would be considered a once-in-a-generation discovery, and collectors pay enormous premiums for coins that redefine rarity standards, especially when the doubling is so strong that it can be seen instantly without magnification. Then, there are mule errors, which are among the rarest and most valuable mistakes in all of numismatics. A mule coin occurs when obverse and reverse dies that were never meant to be paired together are accidentally used on the same coin. If a 1993 cent were discovered with a mismatched reverse, such as a design from another denomination, another year, or even a prototype or experimental reverse, the numismatic world would be shaken, because such a coin would not only be rare, but historically significant, representing a breakdown in mint procedures that was never supposed to happen. And when history, mystery, and extreme rarity collide, values can reach astonishing heights. Another scenario that fuels the $12 million valuation is a combination of errors, because while single errors are collectible, multiple major errors on one coin multiply its desirability exponentially. Imagine a 1993 penny that is struck off-center with a dramatic percentage of the design missing, while also showing a wrong planchet composition, a double die, and a broad strike, all preserved in near-perfect condition. Such a coin would be virtually impossible to duplicate and would stand alone as a unique artifact. Uniqueness is one of the most powerful forces in the coin market, because when only one example exists, the value is determined not by price guides, but by what elite collectors are willing to pay to own history. And that's where 7-figure and even 8-figure prices come into play. Another powerful factor is mint error survival rates, because many error coins are caught and destroyed before they ever leave the mint. So if a catastrophic error slipped through quality control in 1993 and survived decades in pristine condition, its existence alone would be astonishing. And when something astonishing meets demand from wealthy collectors, museums, and private institutions, the price can soar beyond traditional expectations. Condition also plays a crucial role, because even the rarest error loses value if it's damaged or worn. But a 1993 penny with extreme errors preserved in mint state condition, showing original luster and sharp details, would sit at the very top of desirability. And when professional grading services certify such a coin as genuine and assign it a high grade, it gains instant credibility and global exposure. Auction houses thrive on stories like this, because a coin that rewrites what people believe about modern pennies becomes headline news, drawing bidders from around the world. Another possibility lies in experimental strikes and test planchets, because the U.S. Mint has a long history of experimenting with metals, coatings, and production techniques, and not all experimental pieces are accounted for. If a 1993 cent were struck on an experimental alloy that was never officially released, especially if documentation later surfaced confirming its authenticity, the coin would instantly become legendary, similar to how certain experimental or pattern coins from other eras have sold for millions. Then, there's the possibility of transitional errors involving leftover materials, such as planchets or dies from different production phases accidentally used during the minting process. If such a transition occurred unnoticed in 1993 and resulted in a scent that defies expectations for that year. Collectors would view it as a bridge between eras, adding historical importance to its physical rarity. Another angle that drives extreme valuations is provenance, because a coin's story matters almost as much as the coin itself. If a 1993 penny with massive errors were discovered in an unexpected place, such as an old roll forgotten for decades or a collection inherited without knowledge of its contents, and then documented step by step from discovery to authentication, that narrative adds emotional and historical weight, and collectors are willing to pay premiums for coins with compelling, well-documented origins, especially when they represent a once-in-a-lifetime find. We also have to consider market psychology, because coin values are not just about metal and mistakes, they are about desire, competition, and status. Owning the most valuable modern U.S. penny ever discovered would be a badge of honor among elite collectors, and when two or more wealthy buyers want the same unique item, auction prices can explode far beyond initial estimates, pushing values into territory that seems unbelievable to the average person. And this is how a penny can be discussed in the same breath as million-dollar artworks and historic artifacts. Another contributing factor is the shift in how collectors view modern coins, because for many years modern cents were ignored. But as older rarities become locked away in collections and museums, attention has shifted toward modern errors that are genuinely rare. And when the market realizes that a particular modern coin is not just scarce but possibly unique, demand increases rapidly. The 1993 penny sits at a perfect crossroads of modern production, massive mintages, and the assumption of uniformity, which makes any extreme deviation from the norm even more shocking and desirable, and that shock factor is a powerful driver of value. One more possibility involves dramatic die errors such as retained cut breaks, shattered dies, or full-face die caps. Next, 1971 1-cent USA coin. Everyday pocket change turns into jaw-dropping stories of hidden wealth, mystery, and history, and today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in modern American coinage, the legendary 1971 1-cent that has stunned collectors with valuations rumored as high as $16 million. A coin most people would overlook without a second thought, yet one that carries a combination of rare errors, mint mistakes, transitional possibilities, and extraordinary circumstances that elevate it from a simple Lincoln cent into a numismatic unicorn. And as we begin this journey, it's important to understand that 1971 was not just another year for U.S. cents, but a period of subtle transitions, experimental pressures, and human and mechanical imperfections that created the perfect storm for rare errors to slip through the system, making certain 1971 pennies among the most sought-after coins in the world today. The standard 1971 1-cent was struck in a copper alloy composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing approximately 3.11 grams, with millions upon millions produced across Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Yet within that massive output exists a tiny fraction of coins that deviate dramatically from the norm. And it is those deviations that drive collectors into a frenzy and push potential values into the multi-million-dollar range. One of the most powerful value drivers for the 1971 cent is the possibility of off-metal strikes, where a penny was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin, such as a dime planchet, aluminum experimental blank, or bronze alloy not authorized for that year. And when such an error is confirmed and authenticated, especially if it remains in pristine condition, the value can escalate beyond imagination because it represents a physical contradiction to official mint records. Another monumental factor is the existence of dramatic double die errors, particularly double die obverse varieties where the date, the word liberty, and the famous "In God We Trust" motto appear boldly doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. And while minor doubling is relatively common, extreme hub doubling that is strong, clear, and widespread across the coin is exceptionally rare. And when such a 1971 double die cent appears with sharp strike quality and minimal wear, it becomes a trophy piece capable of commanding astronomical prices. Then, there are die cap errors and broad strikes, situations where a coin was struck without a proper collar or became stuck to a die and continued striking subsequent coins, creating surreal warped shapes and ghostly impressions. And when a 1971 cent displays a dramatic die cap or full brockage with mirrored designs, it becomes more than a coin, it becomes a piece of industrial art that captures a frozen moment of mint chaos. Something collectors are willing to pay fortunes to own. Another extremely valuable mistake involves wrong mint marks or missing mint marks, particularly for Denver and San Francisco issues, where either the mint mark was punched incorrectly, placed over another mark, or entirely absent due to grease-filled dies or human oversight, and when combined with other anomalies like misaligned dies or rotated reverses, these coins enter a realm of compounded rarity that exponentially increases their desirability. Weight anomalies also play a major role in identifying potentially $1,001,971 cents, as coins struck on incorrect thickness planchets or improperly alloyed blanks may weigh significantly more or less than the standard 3.11 grams, and collectors and grading services pay close attention to these deviations because they often signal experimental materials or transitional leftovers that were never meant to circulate. One of the most tantalizing possibilities surrounding the 1971 1 cent is the rumored existence of transitional composition errors, coins that may have been struck on experimental aluminum or alternative metal planchets during periods when the U.S. Mint was exploring cost-saving measures. And although official aluminum cents are associated more closely with the mid-1970s, whispers and anecdotal evidence suggest that test blanks or rejected experimental materials could have been mistakenly fed into presses earlier than officially documented, and if a genuine 1971 aluminum cent were ever confirmed and legally owned, it would instantly become one of the most valuable coins in existence, potentially justifying valuations in the tens of millions due to its uniqueness and historical significance. Surface anomalies also contribute to the mystique and value of rare 1971 cents, including dramatic lamination errors where the metal peels or cracks due to improper alloy mixing, creating eye-catching textures and patterns that make each coin visually unique. And when such errors occur alongside other major mistakes, the coin's value multiplies rather than merely adding. Another overlooked but critical factor is strike quality and preservation, because even the rarest error loses a substantial portion of its potential value if it shows heavy wear, corrosion, or damage, whereas a high-grade example with full original luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks can push values into territory that sounds unbelievable to the average person, especially when such a coin is certified by a top-tier grading service and encapsulated with an error attribution. The $16 million valuation often discussed in connection with the 1971 1 cent represents a perfect storm scenario, a coin that combines multiple major errors such as an off-metal strike, dramatic double die features, mint mark anomalies, and pristine condition, making it not just rare, but essentially irreplaceable. And in the world of elite numismatics, irreplaceability is what drives record-breaking prices. Historical context also plays a crucial role, as the early 1970s marked a period of economic uncertainty, rising metal prices, and increased scrutiny of coin production costs, leading to tighter margins and more experimental thinking inside the mint, conditions that ironically increased the likelihood of mistakes slipping through unnoticed amid massive production demands. The story of the 1971 cent is also a reminder that many of these coins were released directly into circulation, meaning they could have spent years, or even decades in jars, drawers, or pockets before anyone realized their significance, and even today, it is entirely possible that ultra-rare examples remain undiscovered, quietly waiting to be found by someone who knows what to look for. This is why collectors emphasize careful inspection of dates, mint marks, weight, thickness, magnetic properties, and microscopic details, because what looks like an ordinary penny at first glance could, under closer examination, reveal the telltale signs of a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Market dynamics further amplify the value of such coins, as wealthy collectors, museums, and investors compete fiercely for the rarest examples, often driving prices far beyond previous records simply to secure ownership. And when a coin has a compelling story, verified authenticity, and extreme rarity, price ceilings effectively disappear. The legend of the $16,001,971 1 cent also feeds into the psychology of collecting, inspiring people around the world to check their change, search inherited collections, and learn more about numismatics. And that sense of possibility is part of what keeps the hobby alive and growing. Ultimately, the extraordinary value attributed to certain 1971 1 cent errors is not just about metal or money but about history, chance, human error, and the thrill of discovery, a reminder that even in a world of mass production, individuality can emerge in the most unexpected places, turning a humble penny into a multimillion-dollar icon. And as you continue your collecting journey, remember that knowledge is your greatest tool, patience is your greatest ally, and the next legendary coin could be closer than you ever imagined, right there in your own pocket waiting to be seen. Last 1995 1 cent USA coin. A big warm welcome to everyone tuning in today, whether you are a lifelong coin collector, a curious treasure hunter, or someone who just discovered that ordinary pocket change can hide extraordinary stories. Because in this video, we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating modern Lincoln cent mysteries. The 1995 1 cent coin that has captured attention with whispers of values reaching an unbelievable $10 million. And as wild as that number sounds, by the end of this journey, you will understand how a simple copper-plated zinc penny from the mid-1990s could ignite such massive excitement due to a perfect storm of minting errors, production mistakes, rare varieties, and incredible what-if scenarios that collectors dream about every day. So settle in and get ready, because this story proves once again that history, chance, and human error can combine to create jaw-dropping numismatic legends. The 1995 Lincoln cent was produced in enormous quantities at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and on the surface it appears to be one of the most common coins of the modern era, featuring Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the familiar Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, struck during a time when the U.S. Mint was operating at high speed to meet circulation demand. And it is precisely this high-speed production environment that opens the door to dramatic errors. Because when millions or even billions of coins are struck, even the smallest malfunction can repeat itself just enough times to create something incredibly rare. And in the case of the 1995 cent, collectors have identified several categories of mistakes that, when combined in extreme or hypothetical forms, push values into mind-blowing territory. One of the most famous and real varieties tied to 1995 is the double die obverse, an error that occurs when the die used to strike the coin receives a misaligned or doubled impression during its creation, resulting in visible doubling on design elements. And for the 1995 double die cent, this doubling is most noticeable on the word liberty and the motto "In God We Trust," where the letters appear thickened, split, or shadowed. And while many double die coins exist across different years, the clarity and popularity of the 1995 double die made it a modern classic, with strong examples selling for thousands of dollars. But the $10 million discussion begins when collectors imagine or encounter an example that combines this dramatic doubling with other extreme factors such as perfect condition, unique strike characteristics, or previously unknown die states. Condition alone plays a massive role, because most 1995 cents circulated heavily, picking up scratches, stains, and wear almost immediately. So a coin that somehow survived in pristine, flawless mint state, especially one graded at the very top of the scale with blazing original luster and no post-mint damage, becomes exponentially rarer. And when you add a major double die to a coin in such condition, the value curve does not rise gradually, it skyrockets. Beyond double dies, off-metal errors are another major contributor to massive valuations, and while extremely rare, pennies have been known to be struck on the wrong planchets, including those intended for dimes, foreign coins, or experimental metal compositions. And if a genuine 1995 Lincoln cent were discovered struck on an unauthorized or previously unknown alloy, especially one tied to experimental mint testing, it would instantly become a one-of-a-kind piece of mint history, and collectors place astronomical premiums on uniqueness, because you can own a rare coin, but owning the only known example places you in an entirely different league where museums, elite collectors, and institutions compete without regard for price. Another possibility that fuels the $10 million narrative is a dramatic mule error, which happens when a coin is struck using mismatched dies, such as a Lincoln cent. Obverse paired with a completely incorrect reverse. And while mule errors are among the rarest mistakes the U.S. Mint can produce, they are not impossible, and if a confirmed 1995 cent were found with an unintended reverse design, especially one never meant to pair with a cent, it would rewrite minting history and send shockwaves through the numismatic world, because it would represent a catastrophic breakdown in mint controls during a modern era when such errors were thought to be nearly impossible. Strike errors also play a role, including broad strikes, multiple strikes, and rotated dies. But again, the value jumps dramatically when multiple errors occur together on a single coin, such as a 1995 double die cent that is also off-center, struck on the wrong planchet, and preserved in near-perfect condition, because the odds of all those variables aligning are astronomically low. And collectors are not just paying for the metal or the date, they are paying for probability, history, and the story that the coin tells. Then, there is the mysterious category of transitional errors, which occur when old and new designs, materials, or processes overlap. And while 1995 is not officially a major transition year, the Mint was constantly experimenting with dies, plating techniques, and quality control methods during the 1990s. And if a cent surface showing evidence of an experimental plating thickness, unusual composition, or prototype die usage, it would attract intense scrutiny and excitement, because transitional pieces often reveal behind-the-scenes decisions that were never meant for public circulation. Another factor that inflates values into the millions is provenance, meaning the documented history of a coin. And if a legendary 1995 error cent could be traced back to a sealed mint bag, a former mint employee collection, or a known error discovery event, its story would add layers of desirability that go far beyond the coin itself, because collectors love tangible connections to moments in mint history. Grading and authentication are also crucial, because no coin reaches 7- or 8-figure discussions without being certified by top grading services, and once a coin is encapsulated with a record-setting grade or designation, it becomes a fixed artifact in numismatic records, often featured in books, auction catalogs, and museum displays, which further fuels demand and price escalation. Psychology plays a powerful role as well, because when collectors believe that a coin represents the pinnacle of modern era collecting, bidding wars can erupt, especially when wealthy buyers see the coin as both a trophy and an investment, and in such cases, the final price is not determined by guides or past sales, but by how badly someone wants to own history. The idea of a $10,001,995 cent also persists, because modern collectors are increasingly fascinated by contemporary rarities, as older classic coins become locked away in collections and museums, pushing attention toward dramatic modern errors that prove treasures can still be found in everyday change, and this belief keeps people searching rolls, jars, and old collections, hoping to uncover the next headline-making discovery. Even the rumors and speculation surrounding ultra-high values contribute to the mystique, because every time a collector finds a strange 1995 penny with unusual features, It sparks discussion, debate, and renewed interest in the date, and, while most finds turn out to be minor anomalies or damage, the possibility, however remote, that a once-in-a-generation error is still out there keeps the legend alive. Ultimately, the story of the 1995 one cent potentially costing $10 million is not just about a single coin, but about the extraordinary outcomes that can arise from tiny mistakes, the immense scale of U.S. coin production, and the passion of collectors who see beauty and value in imperfection, and it serves as a powerful reminder that even the smallest denomination can carry massive significance. So the next time you come across a simple Lincoln cent dated 1995, take a closer look, because hidden within that modest piece of copper-colored metal could be doubling, misalignment, or something never documented before. And while most will remain ordinary, history has shown time and again that it only takes one incredible mistake to transform a common coin into a multi-million-dollar legend that captures the imagination of the entire numismatic world.